Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us for the first episode of the new Future Marketing series. Apologies, we're a wee bit late there. We had a few technical issues that we had to deal with, and that'll teach us to take the summer off. We're glad to be back. We've got a full-on content session planned for the next 7 or 8 months. The first one of this series, we're talking about social media for good. Thanks for joining us for the first episode of the new... You think I'd know better than that, wouldn't you? What is it they say? Anything that can go wrong will. So, so we're talking about social media for good as the first episode of the new series. Social media gets a bit of a kicking sometimes and has a bit of a bad rap for all the potentially harmful effects. But I think it was important to take a look back at some of the times when it's really worked and when it's really done well. So when we wanted to put this one together, we were trying to think of a guest, and we thought, who better than Ashleigh Watson? So Ashleigh, welcome along to the show tonight.
Thank you very much, Peter. I kind of feel a little bit responsible for your phone going on and being late because I talked about bloopers just before we came on.
I'm going to take that. So let's blame Ashleigh.
I might have scudded us, sorry.
We'll blame
thank you very much for
Rule number one, it's never your fault. Right, so find somebody else. So for anybody that doesn't know, Ash is the founder of Copper Square Communications and also the organiser of the Social Media Savvy event that takes place in Belfast every year. Am I right in saying you've just confirmed the date for next year?
Just confirmed the date for next year. Signed the contract today.
Oh, very good.
So hot off the press, save Thursday, the 1st of June, 2023, in Titanic Hotel, and the theme is social media for good.
What a coincidence. It wouldn't be an episode of The Future of Marketing without shameless plugs. So why stop now? So, as I said, we wanted to redress the balance a little bit about the best examples of what we've seen on social media over the while. So we decided originally actually that we wanted to do a top 20, but we couldn't find 10 each for various reasons. So it's a top 14, which is a bit of a random number, but hopefully they all justify inclusion. There are a few themes emerging from them, and you'll hopefully get an idea of those as they come around. So there's obviously entertainment, which is generally what people like when they're on social channels. There's some examples of consistency there and tone of voice and getting it right across all your marketing channels. There's a few gut punches in there too, so it doesn't always have to be entertaining or funny. There is a serious message there sometimes, and there are a couple of really good examples of that. More from Ashleigh than me, to be honest. I tend to go for the funny ones. And then there's that whole idea of what's happening now, capturing a mood of a moment in time, and there are some really good examples there. And as well as the final one, I suppose, is the power of connection, I suppose, and how accessible it has made people, whether they be celebrities in inverted commas or people of note, or just the ability to connect with people in different places at different times. So I suppose without further ado, if we take a quick run in, I've taken a bit of inspiration from this from Overlap Extra on YouTube, which is Gary Neville's series that he does where he asks ex-footballers and sports people a random number of questions, and Ash actually had to point out to me that
it's not that random.
It's not that random. It's about the shirt number that they wore. I missed that one, so I'm ashamed to say. So if we start then, I've taken the odd numbers and Ash has got the even ones. So at number 14, first one on the list is Woody Harrelson's poem. So I'm not sure how many people saw this, but there was a lady who posted a picture of her daughter laughing alongside a photograph of Woody Harrelson and said, "How come my daughter looks like Woody Harrelson?" And the resemblance is uncanny, actually. But the response, as a little aside to that, actually, on the 6 degrees of separation sort of theme, anybody that knows Blue Sky will have come across Ethan, who's doing the vision mixing here for us tonight. And the lady who posted it is actually a wife, the wife of a guy that Ethan used to know when he was a kid. So there you go. But in response to the post, Woody Harrelson actually wrote a poem for this young baby, which went mental, I think, on Instagram originally, and then was posted across to Twitter. And I think that the last count on the screenshot I took, it had almost 900,000 likes or something on it.
It's one of those things, though, isn't it, Peter? You put a post up and you kind of forget who's at the other end of the screen, who's actually going to see this.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that lady put it up and never in a million years thought Woody Harrelson's even going to recognise or notice, let alone pen a poem.
I know. I mean, to respond, to get a like from Woody Harrelson, people would talk about, you know, to get a share, to get whatever it was. But for him to actually take the time to write, it was a little limerick, wasn't it? It was 4 or 5 lines. It's just phenomenal. It goes back to that point I made about that accessibility and that connection and how available these people are now. And I suppose that it on a more serious note, there's a story there about the challenges that it poses for the traditional media. I feel like that, you know, the media is no longer in control of the story. These people can now access their fans directly. and stay in control of the story, which poses massive challenges for
massive challenges for marketers, because we quite often get asked, can you make this go viral? And sometimes you can't, and well, a lot of the times you can't. But then you have chance posts like that where Woody Harrelson actually replies to it, and you have a limerick at the end of it as well.
I know. Yeah. Okay, so if we move on then to Ash's first example, if you want to introduce us to that one.
Okay, in at number 13, we have Innocent Smoothies. Very top of the pops there, wasn't it?
It was.
So Innocent is a brand that I love for many reasons, and mainly because they shouldn't be as good as they are on Twitter as they are. Yeah. It's mashed up fruit. Like that's what they're selling, but they're so engaging and entertaining on Twitter, and their consistency with their tone of voice, how they engage their audience, they get involved in everyday conversations. At the minute, their Twitter feed's all about the Great British Bake Off.
That's right, I've seen that.
Which I'm actually ashamed to say I've never watched.
Really?
Yeah, I know. But I might now. But what I like about their content is that it's just lighthearted and fun. They're not there to sell smoothie.
Crushed up fruit. They could do the 5 a day, you know, this is all a very healthy thing, and they don't. And I just think, they're funny at what they do. John Thornton, who used to work for Innocent Smoothies, spoke at Social Media Savvy last year, and he shared like their process, and there's very little in way of sort of sign off. So the social media team are given full creative like license. Yeah. And sometimes that doesn't work, and it's okay to say, look, we got that wrong. Yeah. And as you said at the start, like, own your mistakes. But they're very good. I think they're very good. Thanks for reminding me about the mistakes at the start as well, actually. That was very kind. No, the thing I like about it as well, actually, it speaks to something around that tone of voice. And although there is no little creative control over the social media teams, which allows them to react to things, it's clearly consistent with everything else that they do. Even, I mean, the first time that Innocent caught my eye was back in the early 2010s, I suppose, whenever it first launched. It might even have been earlier than that. And it was the language that they used on the bottles, and they still do. I think my daughter told me the other day, who's also on the production team today, that they have a thing when you turn up up on the side of the bottle, it says, "Don't look at my bottom" on it, you know. And it's just it's. I mean, anybody that knows me will know I'm a fan of childlike humor. So so it's all those things. It's just they've just got it right, and they've managed to maintain it.
Yeah, they're consistent throughout their social, their website, their packaging, their branding. They're just really good at it.
I know, and as we talked before, Ash, I mean, the thing that not surprises me, but maybe it's the pessimist in me, wasn't expecting it to survive when Coca-Cola bought them. You know, you thought that'll all just go. They'll get swallowed up into this big monolith, and they'll lose some of the soul of it. But whatever arrangement there is there, from a Coca-Cola perspective, you'd say as well, you know, they've maintained the integrity of the Innocent sort of brand, and it still stands alone. There was a lot of people, because it started out as this disruptor brand, which there are a few examples of this that we'll talk about later on. Ultimately, disruptors end up getting bought by big corporates, and you know, you think, do they lose a little bit of their soul when that happens? But Innocent sort of seemed to have. I'm sure people would criticise the involvement with Coca-Cola on an ethical level in some cases, but from a pure marketing perspective, I think it's a very good example of how that brand has been managed within the larger corporate.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Okay, number 12, then this is one that I don't know whether I'm just giving them too much credit here, but number 12 for me is the Centre Parks incident a couple of weeks ago when the death of Queen Elizabeth II happened, and they originally said that everybody had to get out of the parks, and then quickly backtracked and said, yeah, well, you could stay, but you had to stay in the lodges. My initial thought was, this is just really badly judged. How did that go through so many levels of approval and not one person say, are you sure this is a good idea? But now I can't decide whether it was really bad or really clever. You know, if the aim, if you listen to the branding experts, if you listen to Les Bennett and Peter Field and all those that's talking about branding, and the target is mental availability. You know, Centre Parks is definitely more mentally available post that incident than they were before. Is anybody not going to book a Centre Parks holiday because they made a bit of a fuck up on the Queen thing? I'm not convinced. I don't know whether I'm just giving them too much credit or not. But
do you think it's a case of no PR is bad PR for this
one?
Yeah,
I think it could go back to that idea of there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, but again, maybe I'm just giving them too much credit, and maybe it was an absolutely awful idea to have in the first place. So I don't know.
I'm not sure. I don't know on that one. I suppose there was very few brands that kind of came out of that well. There's lots of examples of how brands maybe shouldn't have published any content, and the fact that they did publish something and we're all talking about it, then perhaps that links back to what you're saying.
Which leads into your next one. Nice little segue into your next one, if you want to tell us yours.
So Playmobil thought it would be a really good idea to put up a black and white image of one of their little characters, which is presumably representative of the Queen, and they put it up across all their social media channels. And straight away I thought, somebody's losing their job in the morning over this. And it was just a real reminder that because there's something that's happened or is happening, you don't need to respond or talk about it or get involved in the conversation. If it's not relevant to your brand, it's okay not to say anything.
Yeah.
It was cringeworthy.
There was a lot of examples of that though, where everybody seemed to have a position on it.
Yeah, there was we talked about it before. We talked about the Thomas Cook one, and they put up,
oh my god, yeah,
safe travels, ma'am. But it was the comments underneath it. You know, people were saying like, she's not flying back from Lanzarote, lads. Like a bit of sensitivity. So you need to be, if you're going to talk and get involved in something that's happening out there, you need to realise that sometimes a bit of sensitivity and a bit of checking this across your PR, your crisis comms team wouldn't go amiss.
Sometimes the best thing to say is nothing.
Say nothing, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. The next example for me is number 10. I feel like the only thing we're missing here tonight is a bit of smashy and nicey. That's a very age-specific joke, isn't it?
I'm far too young for that.
Shut up. It's just some of those times, you know, sometimes you get bogged down in all the trolls and the Brexit and the cost of living crisis and the Liz Truss stuff, which some of it is quite entertaining, actually. And you think, God, isn't the world an awful place? And then you come across a thing I came across completely by accident the other day, where a woman posted a video of her young daughter, who's maybe about 9 or 10 years old, who walked outside her house to greet the delivery driver who was deaf. He's the guy that delivers all the stuff to their house all the time, obviously. And this girl had taken the time to learn sign language so she could communicate with the delivery driver. And there's this 15-second video of her saying to him in sign language, you know, thank very much for calling. And he's amazed that she is now signing to him. And you think, God, you know, maybe the world just isn't as bad as Twitter, probably in particular, would make you think it is sometimes.
Moments like that, though, remind us that social media is about connecting people.
Yeah.
And it's about stories and relating to somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think a big thing with social media is about storytelling. Like, we remember stories. we're taught as children through the use of stories. And so having little moments like that on Twitter or Instagram or whatever it might be, that will stick with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's something in that? You hear so much about the importance of storytelling and the importance of storytelling. Do you think people have just got fed up listening to it a little bit and don't understand that it does actually really matter? People we get asked not all the time, but fairly regularly when it comes to video. What do I need to make a good video? What camera do I need to buy? What tripods do I need to buy? What lights do I need to buy? You don't need any of that. Stories like that, if the story is good enough, it doesn't matter what you shoot it on.
I think
of course that can add.
Yeah.
But
I think that comes down to our obsession with stuff.
Yeah.
And wanting to have like the best stuff, the best gear, and an inner confidence.
Mm-hmm.
You think, well, I can't make that video or I can't do this post on social because I haven't got the best camera or the right microphone, and that holds us back from actually posting anything.
Mm-hmm.
And some people think, oh, such and such told me in storytelling and this and that, so I have to do, and they'll concoct a story. But the best examples are authentic and honest.
Yeah.
And they just happen.
I know. Which goes back to your early point of, can you make me a viral video? It's like, no, because 99% of them happen completely by accident. Yeah. So we can't, and if you try and create that, ultimately, most of the time you will fail.
You'll fail, yeah.
And understand what the value of it as well is. Why do you want to create a viral video? It's, if it's related to your product, surely it's got to be about selling stuff or hiring people or something. So viral is not always a good objective to have.
It's the vanity of it, isn't it?
It is. It can be, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 9, the wonderful Miss Liz Truss has already had a mention this evening.
Liz Truss.
So if you want to take us through the wrong Liz Truss.
So this poor lady who's called Liz Truss had a fairly inactive Twitter account until another Liz Truss was made Prime Minister. And all of a sudden people were tweeting at Liz Truss to congratulate her on her new role. And she replied to every single tweet that she got, including one from the Prime Minister of Sweden, where she is very excited about visiting and their meatballs. And it was just so funny because this is just a normal person.
I just can't get the Swedish Chef from the Muppet Show out of my head. Yeah.
But this is just a normal lady who's, going about her every day, and all of a sudden somebody happens to have the same name as her, and somebody hasn't checked the @ handle on Twitter before they've put out the post. And this poor lady's been absolutely bombarded. But her response to it is just hilarious.
Yeah. And it's a daily fear of social media content managers.
Yeah, tagging the wrong person.
And you think, I'm getting sacked in the morning because I've tagged the wrong person. But if the Swedish Prime Minister can do it.
Well, exactly. It's probably the best thing to
bring
come out of.
Bring that to your disciplinary meeting.
Probably the best thing to come out of Liz Truss being Prime Minister was the tweets on the wrong Liz Truss.
Yeah. Okay, if we move on then, number 8 isn't a new one, but it's still one that I think is brilliant, and it's the Dollar Shave Club. Whenever they first launched, I can't even remember how long ago that was. It was probably 10 years ago. And I remember the first time I saw the video, I thought that is just brilliant because it was done with humour. I think it was the actual MD of Dollar Shave Club who was the star and role in the video.
Yeah.
And he hit all the irritating points, no pun intended, of shaving, which was how much are they paying David Beckham, stroke Roger Federer, and how many twisty handles and flashy blades and trimmers does one razor need, and also going back to that idea, that they were disruptors and they were just trying to create jobs and that small business ethos, where they went in, and I think there was a guy, Alejandro, in the factory, and they said, we're creating jobs. What were you doing last week, Alejandro? Not working. What are you doing this week? Working. And we're no Vanderbilt, but it was the whole, we're not the big corporate, we're the little guy. you know, and everyone loves the little guy. Everyone wants the little guy to win. And then, of course, the same thing happens with Innocent, and they get bought by a big corporate. But it spawned the birth of this whole DTC sort of market now. I mean, I'm a Harry's customer, and I wouldn't be a Harry's customer if it wasn't for Dollar Shave Club telling me that there was a different way to buy razors and introducing that as a different way to buy razors.
I think social media does that quite well, though. It kind of introduces us to the alternatives that are out there, and it gives a platform for the small business owner to actually be creative, you know, and you don't need to have a massive budget and be able to afford David Beckham or Roger Federer, that you can make really good content.
Just need to be creative.
Be creative, yeah. So know what you do and who you do it for, and do it.
Yeah, that's very good. Okay. Number 7 then.
Number 7 is another firm favourite, Aldi. So Aldi UK, again on Twitter, but the social media team actually respond to people who tweet Aldi, and they're very funny about it. You know, they kind of like, they own the fact that they have the world's fastest checkout, and you're literally standing at the bottom holding your bags up, trying to catch your shopping as it goes through. But they're consistent with the content. They are funny and lighthearted with it, and at the end of the day, they're a supermarket. You know, again, it's nothing that's like massively it's not really that exciting, but they're just really, really good at what they do. And today yesterday they responded to when Tesco joined TikTok with the Tesco duet, and they've responded to that, and I must have watched it about 5 or 6 times. It's just so funny. There's 2 big brands, and I'm sure, I don't know, maybe Tesco's aren't kicking themselves at Aldi or sort of getting in on the action
one of the I think the screenshot I grabbed for the visual there was some person that tweeted, when you buy a pack of eggs and 4 of them are doubles, you know. And I think their reply was, and we didn't even charge you extra for it, you know. And it's just, you know, it is just very, very good. Okay, number 6. I just had to have Paddy Power in there somewhere, because for the same reasons as I agree with you on Innocent. I just think everything they do is very funny and very engaging, and I'd imagine the legal department at Paddy Power are in a constant state of stress over what's going to happen next. But they did a great one, and I like it because it's funny, but I also like it because it was going after the Twitter trolls. So the one that I picked was Ruby Walsh went through a phase of falling off horses quite regularly. And there was a troll who was following him on Twitter saying that he was doing it deliberately, and he was jumping off the horses deliberately, and that's why he was losing the races, and he must have been getting paid to lose the races. So Paddy Power and Ruby Walsh, in a completely constructed scenario, found the troll, visited his house, and took him for a drive. And Ruby got into the back of the pickup with him. They put the jockey's helmet on. Ruby told Paddy Power to get the thing up to 40 mile an hour. And when they said to the guy, whenever it was up at 40 mile an hour, okay, jump. And I was like, what are you, mad? And he's like, well, this is what you suggest I'm doing. The horses are running at 40 miles an hour when you think I'm jumping off them. So, and the guy was like, no, you're crazy. Stop the car. I want to get out. And then he dropped a £10 note, I think, out the window, and got the guy to get a taxi home. And it was funny. It was really engaging. Ruby Walsh was brilliant in it. Paddy Power is always good in his things. But it was the fact that they were doing that thing of taking on the trolls as well, and showing that you don't have to do that in a serious way. You can actually do that in a very engaging and funny way as well. Yeah, but it can be the dark side of social, the trolls, because I sounded like my mother when I said that there, the trolls. But calling people out on that and saying, like, do you know what, actually it's not okay to do that. So yeah, no, they're another brilliant example. Okay. Brilliant example. Number 5 then is the Foo Fighters and the Live Lounge AllStars.
Yeah, this kind of, I'm going to watch this again. I still got really emotional over it. Already COVID seems like it was years ago. Like, first lockdown seems donkeys ago, and it's scary. It's only 2.5 years ago. But Foo Fighters and Radio 2 Live Lounge got together, and with artists from all over the world. It must have been a technical nightmare to put all of that together.
Yep.
But days like these, collab to raise money was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it just reminded you that we're all sitting at home feeling the way we were feeling, really not understanding a lot of the time what was happening.
Yeah.
And social media actually really stepped up and said, well, like, here's a platform that's going to allow you to connect with your family, connect with your friends, and connect with, I don't know of any other time in history where we've all kind of globally experienced the same thing.
No. Well, I mean, it's the first pandemic in how long, isn't it? I mean, and, Twitter wasn't around when Spanish flu happened, so. No. Yeah, and I think it was so good for me as well, because I never realised how soon it was actually after the first lockdown. I think that when I was grabbing the screenshot of the tweet for the visual, it said the 3rd of April on it, and I mean, that was, 2 weeks after the first
2
lockdown.
weeks after the UK,
so, to get that organised and done within 2 weeks showed not only a huge logistical effort, but also that it did sort of bring people together a little bit, because everybody was like, yeah, we want to do this. Because I think I realised during COVID that I actually really like being in the company of other humans, because you don't realise how much you enjoy that until you can't do it anymore, because it's never been a thing where you're not able to do it anymore. No. And it was just this, from the whole clap the carers thing right through to things like that, just really reinforced how we are a social we are social beings. We like being in the company.
And I suppose on the social media for good side of it though as well, the fact that we were using social media to raise money, to raise awareness as well, hashtags like stay home, save lives, there's powerful messages within that as marketers and communicators, and we were trying at that very early stages to educate and inform. And so that, with that one example, you've got educate, inform and entertain, which are the three big content pillars. Social media.
Very good. Yeah. My fourth one, my number 4 is just, I suppose, an example of where we're at our best when we are children. There was a tweet I saw, it was just over the weekend actually, when I was panicking about this because I didn't have enough things to talk about, and I came across this one about this woman who said she came across her daughter who'd spent the weekend learning Korean on Duolingo, and when she asked her why, she said because there was a new Korean girl had started in her class at school, and she just wanted to be able to talk to her.
Why not?
I thought, Jesus, when? I mean, I do genuinely believe we are at our best when we are children, and something happens as we get older. And I don't know if any of this is a shameless plug for our 5th birthday video, but that was part of the reason behind why we did that. Because it's just a reminder of why do we stop skipping? Like, when do we stop skipping?
Yeah, what age did that happen? 6.5 or something?
Yeah, and why do we not greet people as enthusiastically as 5-year-olds greet each other? We get all self-conscious all of a sudden, and we can learn an awful lot. COVID, to be honest, has been a big learning thing for me, as well as being able to run my own business and have a bit more freedom to do the things that I wasn't able to do in a previous job, which was simple things like collecting the kids from school. Because the creative idea for that video came from being in the playground, collecting our 5-year-old and seeing him skipping past his friends and thinking, when do we stop doing this? So it's just...
Are you still skipping into work though?
Not as much as I should.
No. New Year's resolution.
You get some funny looks going down High Street.
Well, you might do, going down High Street.
But I mean, why should you care?
Exactly.
Dance like nobody's watching.
Absolutely.
Sing like nobody's listening.
Yeah. Absolutely, I agree.
Okay. Number 3 then brings us back actually to one of your guests, the last social media savvy.
It does, yes. So Nick Entwistle is the founder of 1 Minute Briefs, and he shared this story, an example, with us at the conference in May, and I was in bits with it. Go on and watch it. Go and watch the video if you haven't already seen it.
Definitely do.
They created a video campaign to raise awareness of childhood cancer, and the little girl Isabella and the C word, and it just had You just don't expect it to be. Yeah.
Actually, yeah. I've never been at an event before where they've played a video and after it finished,
could heard a pin
there
drop.
was just silence.
Yeah.
And nobody knew.
No.
Everybody was just in such a state of shock, actually.
Because you thought it was going to be one thing.
Yeah.
But I thought it...
Yeah, everybody did. I think that was why it was so brilliant.
This one thing, and then bang.
Yeah.
And just everything about it is really, really powerful and emotional, and you have to watch it.
Yeah, it's one of those proper gut punches.
It is an absolute gut puncher.
Okay, number 2, we're approaching the end here. Number 2 is Paul and Nick Harvey's 4 Notes. Not sure how many people are aware of this one, but again, in the 6 degrees of separation sort of way, Nick Harvey, who's the son of Paul, was a next door neighbour of my wife when she was brought up in Forest Row in East Sussex back in the 80s. She won't thank me for telling people that was back in the 80s, will she? No, sorry. So Paul and Nick. Paul was a piano teacher and a composer, and he's got dementia. And Nick goes and visits him all the time at home. He's still living at home, obviously. But when he goes to see him, he says sometimes he's having a really bad day and he can't remember things. And the only thing that ever brings him back is when he sits at his piano. And he used to have this party trick when they were kids that he would say, give me 4 notes. And they would shout 4 random notes and he would compose something. And Nick sat him at the piano and took his phone out and recorded it on Twitter and gave him 4 notes. And he composed this thing that went on for about 2 minutes just off the top of his head. And it was like, what just happened? Like, that's incredible. It just exploded on Twitter. It got the video, I think, had 2 or 3 million views on Twitter within 24, 48 hours. They were invited on the BBC Breakfast. Then the London Philharmonic contacted them and said, do you want to come up to Maida Vale Studios and we'll record this with you? We'll write string pieces for it and we'll record it. And they released it as a single to raise awareness of for a charity called Music for Dementia. And it's just brilliant on so many levels. For me, for that connection part where it was that real human story was the thing that immediately grabbed people immediately, but also for the awareness that it resulted in. Like, who knew that music was really good for dementia? I had conversations with some of the people at Music for Dementia. We chose them as a charity for Christmas the year that happened, because it was like, this is incredible. How can I help? Is there anything we can do? And it's just one of those, again, happy accidents that just results in something amazing happening. Yeah,
but it like what we're talking about, the recurring themes are like being authentic, connecting with people, having something that's really relatable, and a lot of this has just been by accident.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, and for anybody, leaving that aside, I would recommend that anybody follows Nick on Twitter, because, I mean, the thing that he did with his dad is phenomenal, and he's a fantastic human being. He's a composer of himself of music for TV, so he's done Ross Kemp's Gangs, and he did a lot of Channel 4 things he's done. He's also a complete idiot. And some of the funny stuff. I mean, he did the caterpillar dance.
Yes.
So he ran a London Marathon and told everybody from 200 meters out he was going to caterpillar over the finish line.
So he did.
And he would, if people donated to the Music for Dementia cause, I think, and he raised loads of money. So he's very open to making a fool of himself for a better cause, you know. And he photoshops giraffes into pictures of Sussex and things as well, and it's funny watching the replies. Actually, people go, "That isn't Crowborough because there's a giraffe in it," you know. So he just knows. Well, I'm very jealous of those people who just seem to have a feel for stuff that works really, really well on social, and it is just understanding the kind of content that people want to see.
It's just being yourself as well, though. I mean, if he's just a naturally witty person, doesn't take himself too seriously.
Definitely doesn't.
Then, he's just being himself.
Yeah. Okay, and we're down to number 1.
Number 1, yep. My last example is Manchester United footballer.
Which always gets an upvote from me.
Calling out Boris and the free school meals. And the reason I've chose this is that was a massive shift in government policy. And he did it on social media via an open letter to government.
Because of his own personal experience.
Because of his own personal experience. And people could relate to that. And it got people talking about it, and it made a change for good. And so that's why I've included that as my example.
No, I love that example. I mean, it's that idea of it's his personal experience coming from a single parent family, and how he was looked after by the football club whenever he was younger. But also, again, back to that point that, you know, people of footballers, anybody in any sort of position, particularly in the UK, I'm not sure if it happens as much anywhere else, it always seems to be a target for, you know, abuse online about whatever it is they've done, and some of the racist abuse that Rashford got for missing one of the penalties in Euro 21. Like, it's a fucking game. Like, you know, I mean, look what he's done. Look what he's done here. You know, and people. And again, I hear. I'm a Manchester United fan myself. I hear other Manchester United fans saying he should just concentrate on his football. His form was rubbish last year. If he wasn't doing all this stuff, maybe he'd score a few goals. And you're thinking, yeah, but what was more important?
Yeah, exactly. Food on a table or kicking a ball.
I'd have loved him to score more goals last year.
Yeah.
But, you know, if it was a choice between free school meals or score 5 more goals, I think the free school meals wins, doesn't it?
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
Okay, thank you very much, Ash. Enjoyed that, taking that run down. So that was our top 14 examples of the best things we've seen on social media. As with anything, these are all very subjective opinions, and I'm sure everyone has their own favourites. Going back to, I suppose, what I said at the start, it's easy to forget the positive force that socials can be when you listen to the noisy minorities sometimes on there. So it's obviously important to be aware of the dangers and the potential harmful effects of social, but ultimately I think the world is a better place for the fact that these channels exist. So thank you very much, Ash, for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
I really enjoyed the chat.
Thank you.
Our next webinar is on in 3rd of November. We're hosting brand management with Jane Roper of Co-Ownership and Ashleigh Bremner, who is a brand consultant from here in Northern Ireland. So hopefully we'll see some of you there. Thanks very much for joining us tonight, and we'll see you again soon.